You just checked your phone. Maybe it was 30 seconds ago. Maybe it was right before you pressed play on this video. You probably didn't even decide to do it. Your hand just moved. Your eyes dropped. And for a moment, you were somewhere else. Now here's the thing nobody tells you. That wasn't a failure of willpower. That wasn't an addiction in the clinical sense. That was one of the most ancient survival systems in the human body, doing exactly what it was built to do. And it has been doing it for 2 million years. The question isn't why you can't stop checking your phone. The real question is far stranger. Why did the humans who couldn't stop scanning survive when the ones who stayed focused didn't? To understand what's happening inside your skull right now, you have to go back. Not 50 years, not 500. You have to go back to a flat, dry grassland in East Africa, roughly 1.8 million years ago, where a distant ancestor of yours is doing something that would look very familiar. They are scanning, not their phone, obviously, the horizon, the tall grass to the left, the cluster of trees where the shadows are moving, the sound that just changed. They are not focused on one thing. They are constantly, compulsively, almost neurotically pulling their attention away from whatever they are doing and checking, just checking. The ones who didn't do this died. That is not a metaphor. It is the literal mechanism of natural selection. The ancestor who locked their attention fully onto gutting a piece of meat and didn't notice the movement at the edge of the clearing did not pass on their genes. The ancestor whose brain kept firing little interrupts, little pull signals, little something might have changed signals, spotted the predator, moved, survived, had children who also could not stop looking up. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge spent years untangling what he called the wanting system in the mammalian brain. He found something that upended the standard dopamine story. Dopamine, the molecule almost everyone associates with pleasure, is not actually about pleasure at all. Berridge's research showed it is about wanting, specifically about the anticipation of a reward, not the reward itself. The brain floods with dopamine not when you find something good, but in the moment just before you might. The checking, the scanning, the not yet knowing. This is why the feel of picking up the phone is often better than whatever is actually on it. Think about the last time you unlocked your screen and felt vaguely let down. Nothing interesting, no new message. You put it back down. And 30 seconds later, you picked it up again. That is not irrational behavior. That is the wanting system running a loop it evolved to run indefinitely, because in the ancestral environment, the scan was almost never rewarded with nothing. Something was always out there. A sound meant something. A movement meant something. The world was full of signal. Your brain was not built for a world where almost every scan is a false positive. Anthropologist Daniel Lieberman at Harvard has written extensively about what he calls evolutionary mismatches, situations where a body or brain built for one environment finds itself dropped into a completely different one. The result is not malfunction exactly. It is a system running correctly for conditions that no longer exist. Your spine was built for movement, then asked to sit in a chair for 8 hours. Your appetite was built for scarcity, then handed a refrigerator. Your attention system was built for a dangerous, information-sparse world, then handed a device that generates an infinite low-stakes stream of novelty. And novelty is the key word, because the scanning system your ancestors used was not just about danger. It was about anything new. New food source, new face, new sound, new object. Novelty meant information, and information in the ancestral environment was almost always potentially useful. The human brain developed what researchers call a novelty bias, so strong it functions more like a reflex than a choice. When something changes in your environment, your attention snaps toward it before you have consciously decided to look. This is why a notification sound can pull you out of a conversation mid-sentence. It is not rudeness. It is your brainstem doing its job at a speed your frontal lobe cannot match. In 2021, Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvin published research showing it takes an average of 23 minutes for a human to fully return to a deep cognitive task after an interruption. 23 minutes. That number isn't about smartphones specifically. It is about the underlying attentional architecture. Once the scanning system fires, refocusing is slow, because in the ancestral environment, you did not want to refocus too fast. The threat might still be there. The novelty might still be relevant. You stayed alert. You kept scanning. What smartphones did was not create the system. They simply found it and handed it an endless supply of exactly the kind of stimuli it was designed to pursue. Every red notification badge is a movement at the edge of the clearing. Every new message is a sound in the tall grass. Every scroll is the horizon. And there is always more horizon. Researcher B.J. Fogg at Stanford, who spent decades studying what he called persuasive technology, has described how the designers of modern social platforms essentially reverse-engineered human behavioral drives and built systems that trigger them on a loop. Variable reward schedules, unpredictable content feeds, social validation signals arriving at irregular intervals. These are not accidents. They are the environment your scanning system mistakes for the savanna, a savanna that never ends, a horizon that never reaches an edge. But here is where it gets genuinely strange. You are not the victim in this story, at least not in the simple way the story is usually told. Go back to that grassland. The ancestor who could not stop looking up was not weak. They were the most fit individual in the group. The one whose brain fired interrupts constantly, whose attention snapped to movement without permission, whose dopamine system kept pulling them away from focus and toward the horizon, that was the one the predator did not catch. That was the one who found the new food source first. That was the one whose genes are sitting inside your skull right now, reading these words. Your compulsion is your inheritance. It is not a glitch. It is the result of 2 million years of selection pressure building exactly the brain you have. And that should genuinely disturb you, not because it makes you a victim of evolution, but because it means the version of you with perfect phone discipline, the one who never checks without a reason, who never feels the pull, who scrolls only when they decide to, that version does not exist in your ancestral line, because that version did not survive. The ones who made it here were restless. They were distractible. They were compulsive about information. They were, in the most biological sense of the word, you. So what do you do with that? Because knowing this doesn't make the phone lighter. It doesn't make the notifications quieter. It doesn't stop the hand from moving. But it does change the frame. Every time you feel that pull, that small, irresistible signal to check, to scan, to see if something changed, you are not experiencing a malfunction. You are experiencing the oldest survival system in the human body, still running, still scanning, still doing the job that kept every one of your ancestors alive long enough to become your ancestors. The grassland is gone, the predator is gone, but the scan never stopped. Tonight, you will check your phone again before you sleep. Not because you are weak, but because somewhere in the wiring beneath everything you think you are, the horizon is always moving, and your brain, just like it always has, just like it always will, cannot look away.